That takes us neatly then to the next issue, which is one of finding premises. Now, of course, it is possible to work from home in some businesses. How many of your clients do you think end up running businesses from home?
The thing is, it depends on the activity they do and on their budget.
Yes.
Okay. Because if you have, for example, we have clients that do marketing, publicity, or general advice, or that sort of thing. If is something that they're really doing on their own, many times they work from home.
But if you are going to run a business which is going to create noise or smells or require lots of materials delivered, you probably won't be able to do that from home. You won't be allowed to.
Exactly. There's certain types of businesses that require special premises that are adequate to that activity.
And particularly if you live in a complex or a block of apartments, there'll be rules within that apartment block that say, no, it is prohibited to run businesses from this block. And you need to pay attention to that, because there's nothing worse than starting a business illegally in that apartment block, and then for all your neighbours to denounce you, for you to be closed down within about 2 weeks of starting.
Exactly.
This is not a good idea. So working from home can be a good idea for some people, and certainly people working on internet businesses, for example, is absolutely fine.
Exactly.
But it's more difficult to run a business from home if you're receiving the public or doing other things. If you do operate your business from home, is there any tax advantage to doing so?
Not really, because if you're renting out premises or you buy premises, these are expenditures for the company. If you're working from home, it's very difficult to include that as an expenditure. Some clients ask, "Can I include part of it?" I say, "Well, we can try. We can look into it."
Little.
But it's not really worth it.
Yes, your fees will be more for including it than they'll save.
Exactly.
Okay, so we move. So let's decide. We'll say we've decided for my new business we need to rent some premises. The alternative is to buy some premises, really. And there are advantages and disadvantages, aren't there, both ways?
It's always as you know, the main thing is to look into the personal circumstances.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's going to be, if you have a high income, it's good to buy premises, because that's going to reduce your profit.
Yes.
But then again, not everyone can afford to buy the premises, so you rent them out, which is also an expenditure.
And of course, for most people, most foreigners setting up a new business in Spain, they are not going to have easy access to finance, and therefore to spend 400,000 euros on some premises is a lot of money, and it reduces the money they have to run the business. And so I guess for most people, the practical solution is that they have to rent.
Out of our experience, most of our clients rent out premises.
Now, can you just explain a little bit about the way in which rentals in Spain operate? This may be Miguel's province, I don't know. But if I want to take a shop to use it as, say, a clothes shop, what are the options available to me when it comes to renting? I can do a straightforward rental?
Yes.
What about a traspaso?
The traspaso is different, because when you open a business, for example, a clothes shop, you need to ask for a specific license from the town hall for that. That costs you money. You have to. So the one that does the traspaso is not the owner of the company, but it's possibly the previous tenant that was the one that was running the business. So one thing is the traspaso.
So he's obtained a license to run the shop.
Exactly. So the traspaso is from the previous tenant, or from the previous individual or company that ran the business, and you rent the premises from the owner. So it's two different things.
And so what you're really doing is renting both the premises and the license to run the business, or at least the license for the premises.
Normally you buy the license for the traspaso is when you buy the business from the previous person.
Okay. So that means you end up paying some cash out.
Yes.
And is it normally cheaper to apply for your own license, or is it normally cheaper to buy the traspaso?
It's about the license. it's better to get the old license and to change it into your name. About the traspaso of the business, it all depends. But if you get a business that is already running and that you know that is successful, it's worth it to get the traspaso.
And it's an important point, isn't it, that when you're coming to a new country to start a business, that you are very clear in the due diligence you do before you start that, before you buy that business. Particularly if you're buying a traspaso and you're paying the old owner, 500,000 euros to take over what he says is a very successful bar, and then you turn up and you find there are no customers.
Exactly. So it's very important to do that first research.
Yes.
And make sure that you can never be sure 100%.
Yes.
Even though you do your due diligence and you check and you think it's successful, maybe you get the business and you don't do as well as the previous owners for other reasons.
Because you don't know the people.
Or or you don't really know how to run that type of business.
Or your lawyers have forgotten to put a clause in the contract that says the owner can't open a new business next door to you.
For example.
Yes.
So it's important to do that previous research. It's worth it.
But I think if you're thinking of taking a traspaso, in other words, buying an existing business and its premises, even more important to get good legal advice.
Yes.
Yes. If you do rent premises, how long is a normal rental contract?
It depends. It's always agreed with the owners. In some cases, it is convenient for them to do a long for them and for you as a tenant. It's good to do a long rental. In that cases in which you are very confident that it's going to go very well. It entirely depends on. Normally, people that rent premises want to do long-term rentals.
And when you say a long-term rental, how long do you mean?
For example, 5 years
5
or
years.
10 years.
Yes. So we're not talking 20, 25 years. We're talking.
It could be.
Yeah. But you say a typical would be say 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during that 5-year contract, does the rent go up, or does it stay the same for the whole 5 years?
It depends on the contract.
Depends on the contract.
If you agree on the contract, say in some cases the owners agree to it because normally on the first years you're gonna have you don't know how it's gonna go.
Yes.
So you may not do very high earnings. So some rental contracts for premises are done in such a way that the first years are cheaper.
Yes.
And then the rent goes up.
Yes.
But that's agreed by the parties.
Yes. And which would be normal for your clients, would you say? If they rent properties, do the rents normally increase over time, or are they normally flat for the whole period?
The thing is, I've seen everything.
Okay.
I couldn't say that there's a majority because it depends also on the owners. There are some owners that are not really open for discussion. They say, no, I want to receive this. In some of the cases, also there are several owners. Maybe there are brothers that inherit the property, and they are not really into,
They don't even talk to each other.
Exactly. So it's in those cases normally it's a fixed rent and just goes up with inflation. So even if you have a fixed rent, it can go up with inflation every year. Yes.
Are there any controls?
Also specified in
the contract, exactly. Are there any controls, legal controls, on the amount that an owner can put the rent up? For example, if I charged you 1,000 euros this year, could I put it up to 10,000 euros next year without any restraints?
What do you mean? Without advice?
If your rent was 1,000 euros a month, and I gave you a 12-month contract, and then at the end of 12 months, could I say, well, the rent's now going to be 10,000 euros a month? Is there any limit to the increase in the rent?
No, not really. Not really. It depends on the market, because we also have premises that are very cheap, because they've been rented for 40 years, and rent really went up.
Nothing.
So if they manage to finish those contracts, so they will significantly.
But there's no legal restraint. So if you start and open a very successful business, you could find that the owner would put the rent up quite substantially.
This is why people want to do long-term rent.
Which is why they want long-term rent, or to own their own property.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the other thing is, if you rent for, say, 3 years, you have a contract for 3 years, Do you have any right to have that contract extended, or is it just purely by agreement with the owner?
It's purely by agreement. And normally this is also stated in the contract.
Yes.
If it can be extended, if not, or if it requires the written consent of the parties.
But the normal would be for at the end of the contract, there is no automatic right to extension.
It depends on the contract.
It depends on the contract. Always, everything depends on the contract.
Normally the contracts, possibly the owners, prefer to put that is not, they don't have, they are not automatically extended. Yes. So they have the choice of stopping that rental. Yes. Because of what we said, maybe the market rises and they want to get more for that rental. Mm-hmm.
Now, if instead of renting, I got tons of money and I decided to buy premises, then obviously there are advantages to that. If nothing else, the premises might go up in value at the same time as your business is increasing. What would the cost be if I wanted to spend, say, 400,000 euros buying a shop unit here in Marbella? How much is that going to cost me in terms of fees and taxes for the transfer?
The same as any other property.
So, how many percent?
If it's 400,000, I think it's 8%. So but Miguel knows better than me because that's the property tax.
Later on. But, so let's say crudely, by the time you've paid everything, let's say it's 10% roughly of the price is going to go in fees and taxes.
With all the costs and everything, 10%, 11%, more or less. That's.
We have a guide to buying commercial property in Spain, and people who are interested in that should look at it. If you're going to buy your premises, theoretically, you might be able to get a loan from a bank, a mortgage from a bank, but in reality, for a foreigner, that's not going to happen, is it?
Either a foreigner or a Spanish.
At the moment, it's very hard.
It depends on the warranty you can give.
Yes.
The banks now became really strict and hard, and they want to see warranties. They want to see.
For people watching this video and thinking about opening a business in Spain, they really should not be planning on getting a mortgage on the premises. That's just not going to happen in the real world.
Well, I couldn't say 100%. It's never going to happen.
100%.
But it's advisable to do some research.
Absolutely,
first,
do some research.
Because
part of your due diligence.
That's also possible.
Exactly.
We normally do request certain details from the clients.
And of course, if you're very wealthy and you can give guarantees, then that's a different thing. But
of course, you can buy anything you like.
Yes, the rich can borrow as much as they like.
Exactly.